Now, welcome to Knight's Pharmacy. You've had your first week, most of you have. There are a few of you which are either starting a bit later or just recently started. So some of you have been in a baptism of fire. Either your manager's been off this week or staff members have been off. Usually when Pre Reg start, they start at a very interesting time because it's peak summertime and a lot of people tend to go on holidays, etc. So you guys are starting at a difficult time, but COVID has made it even more difficult. And you would have seen some of the things that have been going on in the branches. In terms of the overview of the program, you would have received an email from Buttercups around your training days, and that should all have been received by yourselves now. If anyone hasn't been receiving emails from Buttercups, please send me an email so that I can chase Buttercups up. But as far as I'm aware, all of you have received emails from Buttercups around your training days and around your program. If not, you also need to check your junk mail. There will be webinar sessions that I will be working with you guys on. There'll be short, quick webinar sessions, not like this one. This one is going to be a bit longer. At the same time, there will also be OSCEs and mock exams set by Buttercups. You'll also have 3 specific leadership days, hopefully if the COVID situation eases. These training days are very important because they're not going to be webinar sessions. They're going to be us going out in the field, seeing how things operate, going into Lexon, seeing how Lexon works, etc., and other areas. You know, that picture on that slide is of a community support worker who was talking about his life experience, etc. So there's lots of stuff that we can do in the leadership training day, COVID permitting. But obviously, with the situation that we have right now, you know, there is no guarantee that those will go ahead simply because of social distancing, etc. So we have to wait and see. But I really want us to get those leadership training days in. If that means we have to put 3 training days all in the new year, then we may have to do that. And then there'll be audits and projects, which we'll talk more about in the next webinar session. This webinar session is really a bit of an induction and opening the floor up to questions with yourselves, most of you having had your first week. Okay, so in terms of the vision statement, this has always been our vision statement for the company. When you work for us, it's important you understand what we stand for and what we expect. And our vision has always been the same for the last 28 years, which is to provide the best personal and professional service to our clients in each community that we serve, so that we are a successful pharmacy company. The vision has to be within our values, and our staff are the key asset in achieving this. To this end, we have defined ourselves with the following values: to ensure that each staff member has a positive, proactive attitude. It's really difficult in a pharmacy environment to have a positive, proactive attitude when someone shouted at you, or you know, it's difficult and you've got staff members off, etc. But it's really important that you're at every moment remembering that that is not personal, and it's important that you show that positive, proactive attitude towards our customers, a sense of teamwork and time management towards their objectives, to ensure that each client is treated with due respect and the service is efficient and professional. For team members, for team leaders to encourage continuous improvement within their teams with relevant responsibilities and accountabilities. Hence, idea generation in terms of service level should be encouraged. We're an organization that's interested in hearing what people have to say and implementing things that we feel that actually would benefit the staff. We've got in trouble for that often because, unlike Boots, where Boots has a rigidified processes for everything. However, I'm of the idea that if there are branches that are doing well in a particular area, for example, NMS, why fix a process that's not broken? So I don't necessarily encourage us to necessarily have a rigidified process for everything unless we absolutely need it, because I want branches to generate their own ideas, come up with innovative ways of doing things. I don't want you to be tied down and become a robot. And therefore, when you work, it's important at the back of your mind, you're always thinking, how can this process be made better? Okay, so what is expected of you? It's very important that you work as part of a team. Now that sounds really easy, but it's difficult to do. It's very difficult to do in terms of having those team relationships, in terms of encouraging development of others, etc. Be proactive rather than reactive. Look for opportunities to develop. This is really important. Often, you know, you've been through a 4-year pharmacy degree, many of you, some of you 5 years. By now you should have understood that you are in charge of your own development, that you should take the step forward to develop yourself in areas that you have a weakness in, not the other way around. We aren't there to spoon feed you. You're now a year away from becoming a pharmacist. It doesn't make sense for anyone to sit down and show you and tell you that this, and this. It's important that you realize, okay, you know what, I have a development need in this area. A good way of exemplifying that is pre-regs that just spend their time, most of the time, just at the back of the dispensary, hiding away from customers. That shows that you're not really looking for a development opportunity. You're not really looking to progress. You're just willing to coast through the year. And most of the time, what happens is you end up getting found out. So my big ask of you guys is to ensure that you're not one of those pre-regs that ends up actually failing in their competencies simply because they thought they could just coast through the year. It's not going to happen, not in our organization. We had a pre-reg like that last year. I have no hesitation in saying it was the Lordswood branch, where actually the pre-reg was not interested in being part of the team, and they didn't want to develop further, and we made a decision at that time to actually terminate the pre-reg year because they were literally not interested in speaking to anyone. They were not interested in working together as a team, and at the same time they didn't think that they had any development needs. They wouldn't cover the front counter, so it was a very easy decision after giving them lots and lots of opportunities to say, you know what, we've given you lots of opportunities to develop, it's clearly not working. Establish a good relationship from the start with your teams. Really important they show a positive, proactive attitude. The exam will not prepare you enough. You need to make use of your experience, and you need to lead by example. You will be a pharmacist in just a year's time. It's important that that you're able to lead by example. I've kept the pre-reg chat open here, you know, the webinar chat. So any questions, please just ask on this chat. Okay. So far, I can't see any questions. So there are 3 elements to your pre-reg year. The first is what the GPHC want to see is you fulfilling all the requirements for you to be a pharmacy professional, a pharmacist. And as part of that, you've got to demonstrate the 9 standards for pharmacy professionals. That gets broken down into your competencies and your exam. So it's really important, if you haven't read the Standards for Pharmacy Professionals document, which was released in May 2017, that you do read that. A lot of this came out also a couple of years ago, believe it or not, when pre-regs and technicians and pharmacists, many used to say, it says pharmacist next to my name badge, not leader. And it was really, and they failed to take leadership and ownership over their decisions. And the GPHC had to quickly look at the standards for pharmacy professionals and ensure that pharmacists pre-reggers and technicians within their workforce were regarding themselves as leaders, and they took ownership and accountability of decision making. Very important. And this will be on the GPHC website. We'll go into this in a lot more detail in your first leadership training day, which I really want to do with you guys, because I'm not a great fan of webinar sessions. I like that personal conversation, because over here it just seems very one way. Now, one book around leadership that I would really recommend to you guys, in fact, probably the only book that I would say would make a real difference in your pharmacy career, is the book by Robin Sharma, The Leader Who Had No Title. It is an absolutely amazing book, and it's something that myself and Nitin have incorporated into our daily lives. It's something that we encourage all staff members to actually work on. So the Leader Who Had No Title is a book by Robin Sharma, and I would really recommend that in your pre-reg year you read about that. And it goes into the 3 areas which are called image, human, and spark. How you can develop behaviors which basically make you a great leader. So that's innovation, mastery, authenticity, guts, ethics, helpfulness, understanding, how you can mingle, how you can amuse, how you can nurture, how you can speak with candor, prioritize, adversity breeds opportunity, respond versus react, and kudos for everyone. How you can inculcate these behaviors into your daily working life, and it doesn't happen instantaneously. It says to develop a behavior you take it takes at least 66 days. But how at the end of your pre-reg year will you have all of these abilities within you? And the book by Robin Sharma is really good for that. Okay, I'm going to play this video. I want someone to message just to say whether they can hear it or not. Okay, guys, so it seems that you can't hear this, which is a bit gutting, because I think there's a problem with this. So that's fine. What I'll do is I'll share this video with you guys separately. You guys can hear me okay though, yeah? Fantastic. Okay, great. So not to worry about that video, I will share it with you guys separately. Now, it was Socrates that said that the unexamined life isn't worth living. And I guess what he means by that is it's really important that we self-reflect on our own development, our own behaviors. And the reason why that is so important is because our perception of ourselves is different to how others can perceive us. Our perception of ourselves is different to how others can perceive us. We may think that others understand us, but that might not be the case. So I want you guys in your pre-reg year to have this in the back of your mind. Now, going on to current realities. What I need us to think about is what pharmacy world have we all kind of come into? So the pharmacy funding plan was announced early 2019, which basically was a flat cash funding settlement. The government said, basically, this is how much money pharmacy is getting, and that is it. And unfortunately, it was a massive imposition. It was a massive drop in pharmacy funding. So a lot of pharmacies had to decide whether they were going to open or close. And of course, we know the stories of Boots and Lloyd's and many other pharmacy businesses that actually ended up selling a huge amount of pharmacies. I think Lloyd's are now onto at least 233 shops. Boots, when they announced last year 200 store closures, have announced a further, I can't remember, it's about 65 or something it was. A huge amount of shop closures, and unfortunately this is still happening, and many independent pharmacies have had to close as well. So why am I telling you guys this? Because when you're in community pharmacy, you have to operate a sustainable model. You can't just be a pharmacist and check prescriptions. The future is not in prescriptions. The flat cash funding settlement is said prescriptions is part of your daily job, right? That's not going to make you guys the money. That's probably going to make you guys just about break even, if that. If you were doing less than 4,000 items a month, you're not even going to break even. You're going to you're basically a loss-making business. So it's really focusing on ensuring that you're providing additional services. COVID has really impacted pharmacy massively because obviously service provision has stopped, and we really need to think about how we're going to rebuild our businesses. Just to give you guys a bit of an idea, in the last 3 months, because of the COVID hit, most branches have either made a loss or broken even, which is the reality. And if it wasn't for the previous 8 months before that, then a lot of businesses would be unsustainable, and that's the reality. There's no surprise as to why more and more pharmacies are closing. So this is the environment we've come into, but adversity breeds opportunity. Remember what Robin Sharma said in his book, and that's why this is a great opportunity for us to look for innovative ways of doing things. The Department of Health, that's Matt Hancock, who runs the Department of Health at the moment. He's basically saying, look, the reason why we've had to make pharmacy cutbacks is because of the financial pressure the NHS is under. The demand is outstripping funding, especially with COVID, and we really need pharmacists to become more clinical, and we can leave a lot of the operational stuff like script checking to technicians and stuff. Look, guys, I have no doubt in the next 5 years that script checking will be a technician job. Not going to lie, if that's what you're expecting pharmacists to do in 5 years' time, it's not going to happen. That process is already underway. And Matt Hancock also said, too many low volume pharmacies. So if your ambition is to open up a pharmacy and run a low volume pharmacy, then the Department of Health is basically saying we're going to try our best to actually close you. And that's why a lot of the processes and a lot of the internet pharmacies have done a fantastic job of stealing our patients, because a lot of these are also being funded by the Department of Health by getting loads of massive grants, because that's where they see the prescriptions being done. They want community pharmacy to be a clinical environment where we're doing service provision, and that will be the plan over the next few years. But where unfortunately you've been hit by a crisis like COVID, it's really, really important that we're starting things back up, starting services back up. Any questions on the current crisis, the Department of Health? If you want to unmute your mic, you can speak. If you want to ask questions on the text, you can ask questions on that message. No questions on the current crisis, no questions on what Matt Hancock had to say. How does that make you guys feel? around what the Department of Health is saying about pharmacy. To me, it makes me feel undervalued. What do you guys think?
Can I ask a question?
Hi, is that Rima?
Rima, yes.
Yeah, sure. Go for it.
Just quickly, when we talk about government funding to pharmacy business, what does it exactly mean? What is the government helping any business owner in his pharmacy? What is it that they help with?
So the pharmacy funding structure will be part of your first leadership training day, where I will go into the breakdown of exactly how the government funds, how much you get per item, how much you get per service, etc., and how you build up a business from that. But that will be your first leadership training day. But there are two aspects to this. So there's for example, the amount you get paid for your prescriptions, etc., in what we call the single activity fee, the amount you get paid for your services, but also what they take away from you. And it's not just what they give you, but funding also includes what they take away from you. And that will all form part of your first leadership training day. What I'm also saying here is a lot of pharmacy businesses, like some internet pharmacies, were given specific grants into the millions and millions of pounds in order to take prescription business away from community pharmacy. And that was the reality. That's actually what they want. So what we have to do is we have to actually really be services focused, because the future for us is not in doing prescriptions. The future for us is actually in doing services, and that's the reality. The prescription should be part of the day job. So there is at the moment going to be a 5-year plan to start to move into being services led, but still doing prescriptions at the same time, and getting the technicians to lead the process of prescriptions and the pharmacists being services led. And that's the reality. But in terms of the exact breakdown of funding, that's going to be part of your first leadership training day. Any other questions? Okay, moving on. So before we even talk about how we're going to go crazy with services, and unfortunately you guys, like I say, started at the wrong time, because prior to COVID there were lots of fantastic services that we were doing, which was the weight management clinics and the umbrella clinics and the UTI services and the travel health vaccinations, and we'd started our first minor ailment clinic, and then suddenly COVID hit and everything just went down. And not only did everything go down, pharmacists are now struggling to start to build that back up, because number one, there's a lack of confidence around providing these services, and number two, there's a lack of consumer confidence. Customers don't feel confident. Number three, financial constraints. People don't have money in their pockets because a lot of people have lost jobs. And there are so many other issues involved, which unfortunately has meant we're kind of going to restart from the drawing board. We have to kind of build that confidence up, customer confidence, consumer confidence, and start to really get the focus back on service provision. Because the longer we delay service provision, the more unsustainable our businesses will become. The biggest cause of unsustainability is what I call the leaky bucket. The leaky bucket is when you're given funding and when you've been putting the time and the effort in, and then there's holes in the bucket, you're not going to fill that bucket up with water. And unfortunately, there are lots of leaks that occur in pharmacy processes, and it's important that you guys are alert and you guys are aware in terms of, and I'll go into a lot more detail in the leadership training days, but I want you guys to be aware of some of the key issues in the pharmacy immediately. Where I guess, if you wanted to kind of put messages on the group or unmute, just a few questions around in your first week, where have you guys noticed that there may be a leak in a process? you know, there, like I say, don't feel silly. Oh, I might give the wrong answer, or I might give the, you know, doesn't matter. Yeah, we're all here to learn. So I guess I kind of want to open the floor up. I don't want to unmute you guys and then ask you guys directly. So it is about participation. Otherwise, there's no point doing these webinars, right? If it's just going to be me speaking. So put messages up on the group, on the webinar chat, or just unmute yourselves. But just you know, from your observations in the first week or so, where have you noticed potential leaks? Come on, guys. Remember, this is about your development, yeah? It's not about my development, it's about your development. So really important that you guys participate. All the branches perfect, no issues? Where could there be potential leaks? If you've not observed any, where could there be potential leaks? I'm waiting. Staff switch over. Yeah, so I guess Umar, so what you're saying there is basically where messages haven't been transferred from one staff to another. I didn't even think about that, but that's a very good one actually. May not communicate what needs to be done. Yeah, fantastic. That wasn't even in my head, to be honest. But yeah, communication is really important. So where one staff member leaves and another one comes, someone's doorbell is rung, they might need to put themselves on mute when they answer the door. Who is that? Let's see. Okay. Yep. So absolutely, Omar, you're very good point. Very good point. Samia, absolutely fantastic. Over ordering of stock. Yeah. So over ordering of stock is the biggest leak in the business. The biggest leak in the business is over ordering of stock. Why do I say it's the biggest leak in the business? Because 70 to 80% of what you make goes into stock. So you only then have 30% to play with. Staffing costs only represents 12 to 15 to maybe 16% of your business costs. 70 to 80% is stock ordering. Yet people order stock like it's in, you know, Amazon shopping account, you know. It's absolutely crazy. You can literally cripple yourself as a business. I went to a business just over a week ago, and we acquired that business just over a week ago. One simple reason: it was a 15,000 item a month branch, really sustainable business when you think about it. The guy ordered too much stock and he couldn't afford to pay the bills, folded. Business folded. Even though it was 15,000 items a month. So it's really important that we have a sustainable business. And one part of that is ensuring that basically our stock holding is immaculate. We're only using what our daily usage is. Don't go crazy and say estimate, oh, maybe 10 packs. That shouldn't be how it works. Yeah, so branded products should be limited when there is an alternative version available. Yeah, that's a good point. Time management. Yep, absolutely, Rima. I think that's really, really important. And we've got a whole module on time management on the leadership training days. So I noticed when often stock was ordered from the wrong place. It was NWAS instead of Lexon. Then this information was not passed on within the team. Myra, really, really important. I'm actually going to touch on that right now. So what you learn about NWAS today, I would like you guys to teach your team members as well. I guess by the end of this pre-reg training program, you guys should be the leaders in everything. You guys should know everything better than the staff members do. And I'm hoping that will be the case. Yeah, so some great stuff. Thank you for your input, guys. It took a bit of time, but every one of you mentioned some really, really important things. And I promise you, everything you guys have mentioned, we'll be touching throughout your whole pre-reg year. We'll be going through either on your leadership training days or in the webinar sessions, every single thing. Fatima, more organized shelving of products. Yeah, that's a big issue. That's a massive issue because sometimes you've got your top 50 lines furthest away and you take a lot longer to go there, and that makes the business unsustainable. But at the same time, there's so much stock sometimes hidden behind the shelves, and you're often doing owings for products. In fact, that's a good example of, remember, I think Fatima remembers this, that, you know, on her first day, I hope she doesn't mind me mentioning, on her first day, me and Fatima both noticed that there was an item actually already on the shelves and the staff had done an owing for it, but it was already there. You know, and it's absolutely mad, and that's a massive learning point. So I'm glad you guys are learning from that. Okay, well done, guys. So I'm gonna move on. If I can remember where to click. Okay. How do we stop them? You can't stop a process from leaking if you aren't a master at that. So it's really important over the year that you become a master in these processes, that you're aware of exactly how it works, that you're inquisitive, you're inquiring. And if you don't get sufficient answers, then there is support out there through myself, through the area leads, to ensure that you're aware of exactly the right process. But most of the time, it's available on the Knights Pharmacy website. Process guides have been created for a lot of things. So the first and most important thing that you need to think about in the branch is, how do we actually prioritize tasks? And many of you may have seen this, and this is the urgent and important box. So where your manager is on their day off, and suddenly you're left in charge of the branch, how do you kind of prioritize what's urgent, what's not urgent? And it's really, really important that I use something like an urgent important box, prioritize my daily tasks, and then basically carry out those tasks. Anything that I've missed, then I move on to the next day. But the urgent important box is really important. I'm going to go into that in a bit more detail as part of the next leadership training day. Now, hopefully many of you would have seen the induction document. If you have not seen the induction document, let me see if I can show you. One moment. I'm just going to see whether I can show you guys the induction document. Okay. So this is the employee induction form. Now, this is available on knightspharmacy.co.uk/mypharmacy. It's really important that if you haven't done so, you work through this induction document. It has all the things that you guys need to do over the next few weeks. I think at least 4 weeks to actually get through all of the important information. and all of the important tasks that you need to do to get yourselves sufficiently trained on Knight's pharmacy processes. I will send this via email to yourselves as well, so that you've got a copy of it. This will have everything that you need to do to get yourselves ready for all of the processes that occur in the pharmacy over the next 4 weeks, and it's really important that you do that. Some of your managers would already shared this with you. If your managers haven't shared this with you, then I will go through this with you. Sorry, I'll send it across to you. Hopefully it's not the first time you've seen this. Okay. So moving on to the next bit. By the way, does anyone have any questions on the induction document at all? Yeah, fine. You'll find a whole host of stuff on there. Now, in terms of the essential stuff that you need to know at this moment in time is some of the stuff that's for us really, really vitally important. And the first thing is disposing of returned medicines. Why have I prioritized this first? Is because the amount of times I've seen students open up a bag and accidentally prick their finger on something. It's far too much. In fact, we had a situation just 2 weeks ago. I think one of the Pre Regs may be aware if they started a bit earlier in their branch, where we had, unfortunately, a student that was pregnant and pricked their finger on something, even though they'd read the SOP in relation to disposing of medicines. It's really important. Your branch should have gloves. They should have the relevant equipment that's necessary for duping. So follow the process. Sign yourself off on the disposing of returned medicines protocol and ensure that you're using the appropriate materials. Do not think you're going to get away with opening a bag and not finding anything. The reason is because a lot of customers, even though you tell them that are there any sharps, etc., you still don't want to just trust their word for it. So it's really important that you guys follow the correct process and are wearing the needle protection gloves. Does anyone have any questions on disposing of returned medicines? So Onkar says, because of the duping procedures, are we to have the Hep vaccine? Because this was planned at one point, but I don't think it was followed through with. So the Hep vaccine, the Hep B vaccine, is mandatory in stores where there are sharps returns. Now, what we advised students to do is that you should get the Hep vaccine at your medical practice. It is not something that Knight's Pharmacy will provide unless in the worst case scenario, we can get a travel trained pharmacist if your surgery basically is unavailable. So if your surgery is unavailable to provide an occupational health Hep vaccine, then you should, a Hep B vaccine, then you should contact us and give us a reason as to why your surgery is not being able to provide it. What's the reason why they're not providing it? And then we can get you to visit one of our travel trained pharmacists who will then administer the Hep B vaccine. Any questions? Does that clarify it, Onkar? Anyone else got any questions on duping? Okay. What about if you're not accepting sharps? Would you still require Hep B vaccine? If you're not accepting sharps, it is a recommendation still, and the reason is because even though you're not accepting sharps, how can you guarantee that that patient will not put the sharps in there? So we still recommend that you do have a Hep vaccine done, but it's not a requirement, and that's up to you guys. but we do recommend it that you get it done regardless. And again, go through your medical practice first, and tell them it's a occupational health Hep B vaccine. Yeah. Okay, so in terms of restarting processes, one of the easiest services that you can restart in your branches from COVID onwards is the NMS process. Now, the reason why the NMS process is so important is because, number one, it improves patient adherence. Number two, it improves patient engagement with the pharmacy. It reduces hospital admissions. It allows us to report issues when they need reporting through the yellow card scheme, and it increases customer loyalty. What we often find in branches is when it says that there's a new medicine, staff usually press the escape button on the system, but that is not the appropriate way of doing it. The moment you press that escape button, you've lost that NMS. If you lose an NMS, you lose it forever. That patient is not going to be a new medicine next month with the Ramipril because they would have had it for a month. So it's really important that you are following the relevant new medicine service procedures and the protocols, which is that when you dispense something and it tells you it's a new medicine, you print the consent form and you put it in the pharmacist basket. So the pharmacist then basically signs that patient up to NMS. In terms of going through the whole process, I want to basically ask you guys to look at this guide. It should be available in branches. If it's not, it's knightspharmacy.co.uk/mypharmacy and the staff training. You should really familiarize yourself with the Knights Pharmacy My Pharmacy portal. You'll find all of these guides there, simple guides that guide you through exactly what the process is on ProScript. My big ask of you guys is that you focus on the duping process, the NMS process, and I'll go through with you 2 more processes. Very important that you hit the ground running with NMS. Remember, you lose an NMS, you lose it forever. Okay, NWOS. This is a massive leak in our process, and I think, I can't remember whether it was Myra that mentioned it, and I'm glad she did. Northwest Ostomy are really important to us. They are basically suppliers of urology, wound care, dressings, incontinence, ostomy, stoma, accessories, and hosiery. They basically are suppliers of a lot of the dressings and stuff that you do in the branch, but they also supply a few barrier creams, etc. The screen has frozen. Is it affecting everyone else, or is it just Samia? Okay, sure. So first things first, why are we using NWOS? We need to ensure that orders for appliances and dressings are sourced appropriately. We need to make sure that we're getting them from the right suppliers, and that suppliers are a reputable source and the products are of a high quality. Yep. NWOS check each and every product before they send it. It's not like a warehouse where they basically, pick and send. No, these people are trained on dressings and urology products and ostomy products, etc., etc. And also the other reason why we use NWOS is so that we can achieve the maximum margin. Yeah, remember the NHS says to us, oh, we're not going to give you that much money from prescriptions. Yeah, so we need to think about more innovative ways of doing it, and that's why we use NWOS. So there are 2 sides to NWOS. One is called the agency scheme and the other is called the trade scheme. The agency scheme is basically where the product is what we call a clean script, where everything on that prescription you can get from NWOS. Let me repeat that. Agency scheme, everything on that prescription you can get from NWOS. How do you know you can get everything on that prescription from NWOS? It's likely to be dressings, urology, wound care, incontinence, ostomy, stoma, accessories and hosiery. Kevlar cream comes under one of those areas, so it would be classed as basically a barrier cream product. So Meepo, say you had Meepo dressings and Aquacell dressings, or you had Inidine dressings and a Europlan leg bag, yeah, for stoma. That will all be classed as agency, and it could have 2, 3, 1 item on it, but that's a clean script that has everything on it. That's basically for NWOS. That prescription needs to get sent to NWOS. Why do we send it to NWOS? Because NWOS is the agency that is now supplying us. Now, when we send that prescription to NWOS, not only do we get an additional discount on those items which we wouldn't have got previously, but we get £2.40 per item, whereas with the NHS only pays us £1.13 per item. So you can see that we're getting more than double back if we do it properly. The concern is that when scripts aren't sent back to NWOS within 14 days, and that's agency scripts, then what happens is NWOS charges for those items and charges for administration. So it's basically a massive leak, because the risk of not sending that script back will cost us, but sending that script back will make us a huge amount more money. So if we do the process properly, we will get a huge amount more money and will become more sustainable, and would be able to get it from a reputable source, but we risk a massive loss for the business. Now that's with regards to agency. With regards to trade, that is when only part of your prescription is available through NWOS. So for example, you've got Ramipro tablets and you've got Meepo dressings. Well, you can't send that prescription to NWOS because not everything on there is from NWOS. So what you do with that is you basically order the item firstly through Lexon, if it's available through Lexon. Otherwise you would order from NWOS. I'll go into that in a bit more detail. I just need to add someone. What's this? One moment. Okay. So the preferred method for ordering prescriptions is through preferred method for ordering scripts which are fully NWOS lines are through agency. Oops. Okay, so there are two ways of ordering from NWOS. You could either ring them on that telephone number using the account number which your branch will have, or the other option would be to, you can stop me at any point, guys, by the way, yeah? You can either unmute yourselves if you have any questions, or you can message on the group, yeah? Or the second way you do it is you can order it through the online portal. Now, here's the important thing. If the order is a trade order, first you need to decide. So if the order is a trade order, we dealt with agency, yeah? We know that agency needs to be sent to NWOS. But if it's a trade order, firstly, you need to decide if it's a split pack. So for example, if it says 6 Meepo dressings, then if that's a split pack, because Meepo comes in packs of 50. So therefore that must go through NWOS, and you would order that through trade on NWOS. But if it is a, and then you don't send the script back, you keep it with you, you don't send the script back. But if it is not a split pack, then you must go through normally on Spider. What is Spider? Spider is basically your normal order pad, and then we in the background decide where's the best way to source it. Most of the time it tends to be from Lexon. does anyone have any questions on that? Really important that you become a master of NWAS, because that is one of the places where we get the biggest leakage. A lot of the times it's because agency scripts are not being sent back to NWAS and they're just lying there. And when they lie there, you're not getting paid for it, and you're also getting charged for it, and they're charging you an additional administration fee for wasting the time.
I have a question.
Sure. Is that Fatima?
Yes.
Yeah, sure, go for it.
I just didn't get it, like when for the agency scheme, when all the products on the prescription are from NWAS, then we go through the agency scheme. And the trade scheme, if some of the products are not from NWAS, we go through that. And if it's a split pack, we would be, I didn't get that part, like.
Sure. Let me clarify. You're nearly there, absolutely. So agency, very simple. Everything is from NWAS. So there are only two schemes. There's agency and trade, or agency and sales, but I call it trade. So when you phone NWAS, they will say to you, is it agency or is it trade? Now, with agency, everything is from NWAS. So you would order everything that's on that prescription with NWAS, and then you would send that prescription back to NWAS. Now, with trade, it's basically only part of the items are through NWAS. But before you send it to NWAS, you need to first decide, is it split pack or is it not split pack? If it's not a split pack, you order through your normal ProScript order pad. You don't order through NWAS at all, because Lexon is our primary supplier. But if it's a split pack, because all the other companies don't give us split packs, then you would order it through NWAS trade.
Right. Yes, thank you.
No problem. Does that clarify it, guys, for that? Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. So Myra asks, could you repeat the part about spider? Okay, right. You don't need to know a huge amount about this just yet, but when you put something through your normal order pad, in the background, we have something called spider, and spider basically decides whether we should send it to Lexon, Alliance, or AAH, depending on which is the most profitable for us. You don't need to worry about that. That's done in the background. Now, most of the time, it will always be Lexon. Why? Because we own Lexon. So it makes sense for us to basically get it from Lexon. So that's Spider. Okay, so Anka says, okay, so Spider gives better savings on stock from trade items if they're full packs than NWAS would. Correct, Anka, 100% nailed it. Yeah. So basically what Anka has said is that basically Spider would give us better savings for full items than NWAS would if it was trade. Yeah, if it was trade. Agency, always. If the script is a clean script, always go through NWAS agency, always. Yeah. Is it more profitable to order NWAS trade product from Lexon? Only if it's a full pack, Rima. But if it's a part pack, then it's better to order from NWAS trade. Asma asks, what if there is only one item on the script, MIPO? Would it be an agency order? Yes, it would be an agency because everything on that prescription is from NWAS. So do you have to always order the quantity on the prescription and not a full pack? Always order the quantity on the prescription, Samia? Yes, always order the quantity on the prescription. Remember that thing about over ordering stock? That's why we only order what's on the prescription. Okay, so now you need to figure out, well, hang on, I've got a green prescription and I've got an electronic prescription. Green prescription, really easy, sending that back to NWAS because we just put it in the NWAS envelope, send it back, making sure that the exemption is signed. Because if the exemption isn't signed, the exemption isn't ticked and signed, and that could be done by us, then we would get charged per prescription item £9.15. So what we need to do is make sure we tick the exemption of the patient and then sign it so that NOS don't charge us for that. Now that's really easy, but with electronic prescription, it has to be resent back to the NHS spine, and the white token bit has to be put in the envelope. So just to repeat that, the script for the for an agency script for electronic has to be resent back to the spine, and then it has to be sent back to them. Anka asked, is there a time frame within which return green scripts? Yeah, it's 14 days. It's 14 days. If we don't send it within 14 days, then basically we get an administration charge. Now, what people often ask me is, hang on, what if a patient doesn't come within 14 days? What we do most of the time in branches is try not to put the prescription in the retrieval. Put a repeat slip or an empty piece of paper with a bag label and say, wherever you put it in, section 13 or section A3 or something, and send the prescription off straight away. The reason is because we're passing it to an agency, so we're not actually claiming for that script. So therefore, the Department of Health and Social Care has allowed us to send that script to an agency before the patient has even come in. That is fine, no problem. So there is no need to worry about that script in terms of whether it's right or appropriate to send it back to the agency before the patient's even collected, because it's absolutely fine. I don't know, did I make myself clear with that bit? Okay, so this How Do I guide is available on, again, knightspharmacy.co.uk/mypharmacy, and click on Knight's documents and then staff training. Now, there will be a lot of newbies in your teams as well, and you might want to go through this with them, because I don't do induction webinars with dispensers or counter assistants or new staff, etc. I would only go through this with a manager or a pre-reg. So it's your responsibility now to be able to show your teams, because remember, your managers are also on their own leadership journey. Some are fantastic and they will guide you through this whole process and they'll be absolutely amazing, but some will be quite new to this and some may not remember it themselves properly. So now is a great opportunity, whilst it's fresh in your mind, to maybe actually say, this is the correct process, here is the guide, if any of your branches have deviated from this. Okay. Another massive leak in pharmacy processes is what we call prescription switches. Now, what that means is basically when you send your prescriptions off, whether they're electronic or whether they're green prescriptions, the pricing authority may not agree with the charge group, paid or exempt, in which a prescription has been submitted, and the prescription will be switched. So if the pricing authority holds that that patient should be basically well, number one, if there is nothing at the back of that green prescription, they could quite easily switch it. Now, if they basically hold a different record, then that could also be switched. So it says if an exemption is required on the reverse of the form, but has not been completed correctly, the form is switched. What does it mean by it's not been completed correctly? It means that you've not ticked the back of the prescription correctly. Now, with electronic prescriptions, do we need to tick over 60? We don't necessarily need to tick over 60 because we're going to send that electronically, which is the white token prescriptions. But we should still get to tick the other ones, which are, maternity exempt or prepayment, etc. All of the others, yeah. But if it's over 60 and under 16s, we don't need to tick it if it's an electronic. However, if it's a green, we do need to tick over 60 and under 16s. Let me just repeat that. If the prescription is a green we do need to tick over 16 and under 16. We do need to tick it. The reason is because when it goes through the machine on the pricing authority, when they scan it, there is every possibility that they will not be able to ascertain the date of birth of that patient. So that's why with a green prescription, we can't take the risk. We must tick over 16 and under 16. With a white prescription, it's not necessary because we're sending it electronically. But all other exemptions for the white prescription must be ticked. So the bottom line is, in a green prescription, if the patient is exempt, you must tick whatever the exemption is. Any exemption, you must tick it. If it's an electronic prescription, you do not need to tick over 16 and under 16. I hope that's clear. If the green prescription is missing a signature, that prescription will be switched. And what I mean by a switch is you will be charged per item for that prescription. So if, for example, you're missing a signature on the back of a green prescription, and it could, you could put your pharmacy signature, you could put your staff, anyone's signature is fine. Consent is implied. You don't need the patient to sign it, especially during COVID. If you sign it on the patient's behalf, no problem. But make sure you sign it. If that signature protrudes onto the payment section, and I'll show you exactly what I mean by that, then basically we will be charged for that script. Okay. Now, the Department of Health and Social Care will not grant any concessions to pharmacies. If you made a mistake, that's it. Sorry, it's too late. Okay. So, this slide has a lot on it. All I want to show you guys is basically what a tick looks like. And I know it's really, really bad, but you need to make sure you cover that box, because if you don't cover that box, that prescription will be switched. That's how pedantic the pricing authority are. And that's only because it goes through a machine, and that machine hopefully will try and arrange some leadership, on one of the leadership training days to take you up there. But it's quite far. It's in Bolton and Newcastle, places like that. But you'll, if you do get a chance to go, then you will see exactly how it works, and then you'll realize, oh gosh, there's so much we could be losing out on through leaks, because we'd be charged for those 3 items when actually the patient was exempt, but we just didn't tick the box correctly. Imagine that. You get charged £9.15 per item, 9/18/27, so you've lost out 27 odd pounds for that prescription simply because you didn't tick a box correctly. That's what I mean by leak. And what do the NHS say? What do the NHS say? They say, we're not going to grant you any concessions. You made the mistake. Why should we have to, go back and change it? If I have a paid prescription that also includes a free of charge contraceptives, where does that go? That goes in the paid section. It goes into the chargeable group. Can I sign on behalf of the patient? Yes, because it's covered by the law of agency. You're acting as an agent on the patient's behalf. You can sign it on the patient's behalf, no problem, and you don't need to worry. I always sign prescriptions on the patient's behalf. I just say, is it all right if I sign it on your behalf? Yeah, no problem. Job done. I always do that. Will the NHS BSA give us any warning of the prescription being switched? No, they won't. I just get a report at the end of each month telling me how many prescriptions have been switched in each pharmacy. That's what I get a report of. And you will see that on your leadership training day. It says, if a patient, so Onka says, if a patient accidentally signs in part 2, then crosses it out and then signs in part 3, would we still end up getting charged? Okay, very good question. So patients made a mistake and they've signed in part 2, which is the paid section. Would we still end up getting charged? Onka, yes, we would get charged for that whole prescription unless there is a way out of it. The way out of it is at the end of the month, you have something called a red separator. And whoever is doing end of month, you should ask them, can I see the red separator? And what would happen is that red separator means whoever is handling that red separator at the pricing authority is manually handling it. It's not put through a machine. So you put it in the red separator so that someone manually looks at it and realizes, okay, I know what's happened here. Yeah. So the answer to your question, Onkar, is if a customer has made a mistake, you can put it in the red separator. Samia asks, can we sign the back for a controlled drug? In fact, at this time with regards to COVID, I would recommend that you sign it on the patient representative's behalf and write the details of the patient representative, though I would encourage that the patient's representative signs for the Schedule 2 control drug. But obviously nowadays it's really difficult because of COVID, but under usual circumstances, Schedule 2s and 3s, I would prefer if the patient's representative signed it. Okay, if the patient date of birth is covered by the pharmacy stamp, could payment still be deducted? So, yes. Basically, what that means is someone could say to me, hang on, Mo, it's got the patient's date of birth on the reverse side, yeah? So why can't the machine just check the date of birth? Why is it that green prescriptions have to have the exemption ticked if they're over 60 or under 16? The whole point is the machine might not be able to ascertain the date of birth. If the ink might not be good enough from what the prescription was printed by the doctors. Maybe there might have been a staple that was halfway through that we then took out and that date of birth is slightly missing. Maybe the pharmacy stamp went too far over to one side. There could be so many reasons why the machine cannot ascertain a date of birth. And I can guarantee you 70% of the time the machine doesn't ascertain the date of birth. Have you seen the state of some of these prescriptions? So unfortunately, that's why they say that we have to tick the back if it's a green. If it's a white, no problem. Except when it's an exempt, if it's a white, that it's the other exemptions, then you must tick it. Just not over 60 or under 16. But green, you have to tick whatever the exemption. Okay, if there is accidentally one exempt script in the paid section, will it be switched? Yes. So at the end of the month, you have to separate your paid and you have to separate your unpaid, yeah? Okay, and some of you guys do that daily. And at the end of the month, if you have an exempt script that's been put in the paid section accidentally, then you would be charged for each item. So imagine maybe the profit you make from a script like this one, amlodipine, ramipril, and simvastatin is about, I reckon, £5, yeah? Generally, that's how much money you may make from that max, yeah? You'll make about £5 from it. However, if you ended up putting that prescription in the paid section, even though it was exempt, you would lose over £27 for that prescription because you would be charged £9.15 per item. So what was the point of doing that prescription? You basically lost that £23 for doing that prescription. You actually did the prescription. You actually did a lot of hard work. You prepared the prescription, but it made you a loss of £23 for one reason only. You put it in the wrong section. You put it in the paid section instead of the exempt section, even though it had the exemption ticked at the back. But because it was put in the wrong section, the NHS-BSA assumed that, oh, it must be paid then. That's it's literally those little mistakes that cause the leaks, which is quite shocking. If the script says patient is aged 59, but they collect when they are 60, will this be switched? No. Provided that you have crossed 60 or over and the patient signed, and then part 2, the amount paid is not obscured, then that's fine, no problem. I hope that's given you guys an idea of prescription switches and how important it is and how you could just lose £27. Imagine on a daily basis how many people file in the wrong section at the, you know, when they're handing out script, oh, let me just put it here. Imagine how many people do that. And we just think, oh, just, you know, just normal thing. Imagine how much money we must be draining each day just doing that. And that has serious impact on the sustainability of businesses. And that is why you could have a 5,000 item business, which would end up making more money than a 10,000 item business, simply because actually they've got the leak sorted. And a good example of that is Knight's Pharmacy at Weedon in Northampton. If anyone lives near there, they could go there. It actually makes more money sustainability-wise than most of our branches, simply because, and it does about 6,500 items, not much, and simply because it has nailed every single process to the point that they know exactly how many tablets they have of a particular product. That is how they've got their stock levels absolutely nailed. You could ask them how much of a particular item they have, and they will tell you exactly. But it's really hard to do that in a bigger business, so you're going to have greater leaks. I get that totally. But where we can avoid things like this, we should try our best to avoid it. Okay. So, last but not least, I'm going to, I know it's a bit grueling. I would have preferred to do it as a section where we go through things together, and you know, previously we've had this as quizzes and so on, but you can't do it in a webinar session, unfortunately. You know, in a webinar session, you just have to literally go through it. It's really hard to actually get as much engagement as possible. So fingers crossed, let's hope that the next training day, the COVID situation improves. Okay, blue scripts. So pretty much all of your branches do blue scripts. Yeah, in fact, I think all of your branches do blue scripts. Now, FP10MDA blue scripts are valid for only 28 days. So I call them FP10MDAs. It's important that we get the terminology correct. And basically, a lot of people will know them as blue scripts. FP10MDA installments are limited to a maximum period of 14 days. So if you're giving an installment prescription to a patient, they have to collect on a daily basis, then that maximum period they can prescribe up to is only 14 days. The prescriber must specify the installment amount and the intervention interval between each installment. They must tell you exactly the requirements of that installment, basically. Yeah. In terms of endorsing, it's really important that you guys understand one element of endorsing, which a lot of pharmacies don't understand and they miss out on payment, which is called package dose. Now, in terms of package dose endorsing, we get, so say, you know, when you give bottles to each for each installment, obviously we need to get paid back for those bottles that we put the installments in. So it's really important that we're claiming that money back for all of those bottles that we've used up. And the way we do that is basically by putting something called PD endorsement on the left hand side of the FP10MDA. You manually write PD, and then you write then exactly what the package dose should be. And for that, we get around, I think, about 60p per bottle or something, which is really important, because if you spent money on the bottles and so on, then it's really important you get money back for it. So how do you endorse packaged dose on an FP10MDA? And the best way to do it is, I'll give you an example. So here is a prescription, which I hope all of you can see, which says methadone 1 milligram per ml oral solution sugar-free, 40 ml daily. And then it basically says on the 16th, you should give 120 ml, on the 19th, you should give 80 ml, on the 21st, you should give 120 ml. Yep. And then it basically says 80 ml on the 24th, 26th, 80 ml, 28th, 80 ml. But the patient's on 40 ml daily. So this patient is going to obviously need separate daily doses to take. So on the 16th, they would need 4, 8, 12. They need 3 bottles of 120 ml. Yeah, and likewise. And you can see on the other side of the prescription, we've endorsed it accordingly. So we've written on the 16th, we gave them 3 times 40 ml of this, and then on the 19th, we give them 2 times 40 ml. Then when you look on the endorsement on the left-hand side, it says PD. Now, how do we calculate exactly what the number should be? So the number should be the total number of days the supply was given. Yeah. So this, remember, is a 14-day installment. 16th of July to the 29th of July is 14 days. So it's 14 minus number of times patient collected. Really easy, because on the right hand side you can see the number of days the patient came in. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So how many days is the total installment period for? 14 days. How many times did the patient collect? 6 days. 14 minus 6 is 8. And that's what you call a package dose payment. You put PD 8 and you will get paid 8 times 60p or whatever that is per, and that is how you reclaim the money that you paid for those bottles. You also get money for installments. So if that patient has come in 6 times, you put at the bottom of the prescription 6, bottom right, bottom left, sorry, bottom left, where it says for dispenser, number of prescriptions on form. Bottom left, you put 6 collections 6 times, and then you get 6 times £1.40 for each time that the patient came in. Any questions on FP10 MDA at all? So remember the 2 endorsements, PD, and then how you calculate PD, number of installment days minus number of times patient collected. And at the bottom left, number of times patient collected. Any questions on FP10 MDA? These endorsements are done only by the pharmacist, right? No. These endorsements should be done from dispenser level upwards. So really dispensers should do them, or anyone really that's basically dispenser trained. Yeah, it's part of normal endorsing, but a lot of people don't claim for these things because they forget. And we're gonna, in your first training day, we'll go into specials endorsing, which is a bit more detailed because it involves drug tariff. But these are the simple things you can immediately implement. I guarantee you, how many dispensers have been shown this by the pharmacist? Guarantee you very few, unless they're trained on end of month process. It's really important that they get this. So how much do we get paid for a PD? If it's 8, then it's 8 times 60p. Yeah, that's correct, Jintu, but I think it's a bit more than 60p now. I need to find out the exact figure, but I think it's a bit more than 60, but it gives you a bit of an idea exactly how much. But imagine you bought all of these bottles, you need to get paid back for them. So this is how you get paid back for these bottles. Any more questions on that? And don't forget the bottom left as well. Number of installments. If you just put 1, assuming it's just a 1 item on the prescription, which is methadone, that's incorrect. Because what you're doing is you're actually doing 6 times. So it's 6 items you should be claiming for at the bottom left. 6 times £1.40 rather than 1 times £1.40 is a big difference. Big difference. And imagine with all of your methadone scripts. What about when you use bottles and packaging on green scripts? Sadly, Henna, we cannot claim for them on green scripts. Very unfortunate. Rima says, every time we dispense an installment on the prescription, does it have to be recorded on the CD register? Yes, absolutely correct. Every time you dispense an installment, it has to be recorded on the CD register. Yeah, every time. Is PD just for bottles, no other containers like boxes? No, PD can be for boxes. Yep. So if you had a very good point, Sammy, actually, very good point, that you get a gold star for that one. So yep, even if it's basically buprenorphine that you put in boxes, you can get basically PD for that too. I didn't think about that. Well done. So boxes, any container, doesn't matter what the container looks like, any container.
Hi Mo, I can't send a message in the thing.
Oh, go on. You can speak, Harun.
Yeah. So technically during the COVID period, because you're not doing installments, as many installments, does that mean you're losing out on the £1.40 payments?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. They played a sly one there. So what happened was during COVID, they issued green prescriptions for these methadone patients. And many pharmacies unfortunately lost out on all of these package dose payments because these patients were used to getting separate bottles. So obviously we were still obliging because we want to support our patients, but we didn't get paid for any package dose. It was really sad. And that just shows again the impact of COVID on our businesses. Any other questions? No questions on that. Okay. Okay. Now, to be honest, the floor. I didn't know how long you guys wanted for questions relating to the Pre Reg program, etc. So I just wanted to kind of open the floor up. It's now coming up to 11 o'clock, I believe. So I wanted to kind of just open the floor up to you guys. You've had a week now in your pharmacies. I guess you've got a chat function there, you've got an unmute function as well. So the floor is open to you guys. We've got until 12 o'clock for you guys to ask as many questions as you want. Otherwise, we could finish a bit earlier. So I'll just wait for a bit. If anyone's got any questions relating to your pre-reg program in general, floor is open. Myra, I had a question about the training day. Will we receive more information about what the day will include? And also it said we have to do some pre-work. So you're talking about the Buttercups training day, and they will send all the information out to you. I also have a template for each training day. So I'll send that across to you guys as well, which gives you an idea of what would be discussed in those training days. But they'll send the information out to you closer to the time. And the venue for the training days will be at our HQ, not that small room that many of you came to last time. We'll be doing it in Lexon, which is just down the road. So you'll have a lot more space, and you'll get to see Lexon. The induction document, is it something we have to print and have signed by our tutor? So it's not something that we've kind of said mandatory, you have to get it signed by your tutor and you have to send it to HR, even though we have written that on there. It's not going to, you're not going to get chased up for it if you don't do it, but it's for your own good that you do it so that you don't miss out on everything. How do we apply for smart cards? Do we do it through the company or do we apply ourselves? So basically in your respective areas, you'll have an area lead who will guide you through that process. So in your area, Chantel, it's Myra. So if you speak to Myra, she will guide you through the process of setting yourself up with a smart card. Any other questions on that? Also, we need to know our area lead. Yours is very Samia, which branch are you in? Solihull branch. That's me. So just drop me an email with regards to smart card process and I'll guide you through. Northampton, Nottingham area, that's Amrit. Most of the Birmingham area is separated between myself and Myra. Dudley area is Salman, Ahmad. Bromsgrove area at the moment. I'm still working on an area lead, but I'm handling that at the moment myself. But we will have an area lead for that soon. Redditch is myself and head office. Rugby, Myra is Amrit Minhas. Anyone else? No more questions?
I have a question about training day.
Yep, go for it, Rima.
Okay, so if we are not able to actually do it physically because of the COVID-19 and social distancing, is there an alternative set up for that?
Yeah, so if unfortunately the social distancing measures are not appropriate, then unfortunately we would Buttercups have got they'll be doing it as webinar sessions, so they'll be running the training day as webinar sessions. But our training rooms are quite big in Lexon, so as long as we can do a 1 meter social distance, we should, fingers crossed, be able to get everyone in. Or we might have to do 2 separate sessions, so we may have to get a group of 8 and then another group of 8. So we might do that. For the Knights Pharmacy side, we might do that. But from Buttercup's perspective, I think rather than doing 2 groups of 8, they may go with a webinar session.